In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a simple sports betting strategy you can use to double your money. A common strategy among recreational bettors is to put a load of short odds selections together in order to make an accumulator which will pay out at least double your money. The issue with this betting strategy is that it lacks any value, and a key component of any betting strategy that is going to win in the long term is that it must have some form of value. When we flip a coin, we know that there are two outcomes. There is either heads or tails. So it is 50-50 to what it will land on. So the true odds on a coin toss should be even money. They should be 2.0 or plus 100 if you're using American odds. Now, if someone was to offer you odds of 2.1 or plus 110 on a fair coin toss, then they would be giving you value, as you are getting odds on something that should only happen around 47 to 48% of the time, but you know that the actual probability is 50% of the time. Fucking fly, man. So when you are getting odds that are higher than they should be, you are getting value from the bookmaker or the exchange, and ideally, as sports bettors who want to win long term, this is what we want to be doing. Now, by taking any old short odds selections we can find with bookmakers and just piling them together into an accumulator, we're actually compounding the value that the bookmakers have against us as sports bettors. Now, the actual strategy of putting a load of short odds selections together into an accumulator isn't a terrible one, and there have been studies that have shown a favourite long shot bias, which shows that bookmakers actually give much fairer odds on short odds selections than they do in comparison to bigger odds. What then do I suggest is the best strategy for doubling your money at short odds? I believe that a rollover strategy using short odds is much better. Now, when I talk about a rollover strategy, we're just talking about after every single bet we make, we roll over the original stake and we roll over the winnings, we combine them together and we place that on the next bet until we eventually double our money. This strategy has numerous advantages over the standard accumulator short odds betting strategy, with the biggest one being that we can get the best odds for each selection. We're not confined just to using one bookmaker. We can look at all different bookmakers, we can look at betting exchanges, and we can find the absolute best odds for each selection that we want to make. Secondly, we can bet in play if we want to. We don't just have to stick to pre-match selections. We can actually watch the games that we're going to get involved in, make our own assessments, and try and find some value in the in-play markets. The third advantage of this strategy is that we can be patient. If we don't see any value in the markets for a week or two, we can just wait, and then when something pops up and we can pinpoint some value, we can place our bet. There's no rush. The fourth advantage is that we can cash out at any time. So whereas bookmakers, they will often give you a cash out value on an accumulator, which is much poorer than it should be. If we're doing the rollover strategy, we're actually giving ourselves the chance to say, okay, I've made 80% a mistake and I'm quite happy with that, and just take it back, and you're getting a much better deal in comparison to what bookmakers would give you. Alright, I've covered all of the advantages I think this strategy has, so now I'm going to use this strategy myself and try and double £100. The first bet that I placed was on Bosnia against San Marino. I placed this in play early on in the second half, so it was around 50 minutes that I placed this bet. I looked at the in-play stats and saw that Bosnia were all over San Marino and the pressure was mounting, and that San Marino have a terrible record and they pretty much lose 100% of the time against the bigger nations. What you find with a lot of these smaller teams is that they're able to get everyone behind the ball and defend for 50-60 minutes until they eventually get broken, and then the bigger nations will go on to win. So I placed £100 at odds of 1.2, and Edin Dzeko scored in the 66th minute, and Bosnia went on to win the game 1-0. The second bet was placed 2 days later, and this was in the Italy versus Moldova game, so I made a bet in the over 0.5 goals market. This meant that there just had to be one goal or more scored in the whole game for us to cash the bet, and I placed this bet in play at around 25 minutes at odds of 1.07, and Italy scored in the 40th minute, and I placed it mainly because I was looking at the in-play stats and I could see how open the game was, and historically Moldova conceded a lot of goals away and Italy had been in good form at home recently. After this bet, I had to wait for around a week before placing the next bet, as there was just nothing coming up. There was the FIFA World Club Championships with a lot of big teams, but there were a lot of variables in this competition. I didn't know how seriously some of the bigger teams were going to take it. It's being played in America, different time zones, etc. So I just decided to wait for the next UFC event. For the next bet, I decided to place the £128 on Rose Namajunas at odds of 1.46. In this fight, I felt like Rose had the advantages anywhere the fight could go. She was the better striker, she was the better grappler, she fought the high level of competition, and she's much more experienced than her opponent Miranda Maverick. And she'd also lost her last two fights Rose had against much higher level competition, but they could have been given to Rose. They were very close fights, and she could have been given the decisions in those fights. And I felt like it was just a bit of a market overreaction to those two losses. And at the age of 32 years old, Rose still had plenty left in the tank. Rose went on to win the fight, and that put our bank up to £187 in total. For the last bet, I'm going to stake £187 at odds of 1.2 on Jake Paul to beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Now, this fight hasn't happened yet, so depending on when you are watching this video, you will know whether this bet won or lost. It might still be up in the air. I might have doubled my money or more than doubled my money, or I might have lost it all. If the Jake Paul bet wins, we will end up on £224, which means we'll have made £124 profit from the initial £100 stake. If Jake Paul loses the boxing match, then we will lose the initial £100 stake that we invested, and we'll also lose the £87 in winnings that we've accumulated from the last 3 bets. My reasoning behind backing Jake Paul in this fight is that he is the guy that the promotion wants to win. This is where the money will be made in the future. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is 39 years of age. He retired back in 2021, so he's retired already. He came back last year and fought Uriah Hall, who was a 1-0 who had a 1-0 boxing record, who was a previous UFC fighter. That fight was very, very competitive, and they gave it to Chavez Jr. And I just think that this is a cherry-picked fight, which the Paul management and Jake Paul himself like to do. They like to find guys that have some name value, but they know that they can beat, and this seems like a prime example for me. So yeah, I'm going to bet Jake Paul at odds of 1.2. Alright, that pretty much wraps up this video. Let me know what you think about the rollover betting strategy at short odds. Is it a good strategy? Is it a bad strategy? Do you think you could get some value out of it? Have you tried it before? Are you going to implement it in the future? Other than that, thank you very much for watching.